My prototype was really a proof of concept that I wanted to prove to myself and to everyone else that we can detect these trends in the student data.
So many organizations leave the prompts in the hands of the engineers and locked up in GitHub or code repositories. And I think you mentioned from the beginning, Watermark has always actually put the prompting piece, the PMs on the prompts.
AI features especially present so many new problems, and AI can magically solve many problems, but it introduces so many new detailed issues that you have to be very, very involved with.
Welcome to another episode of AI Product Leader, where every week we shine a light on what it takes to really join the AI world. Real conversations with AI builders, founders, product leaders, experts, technologists, and everything in between to understand where the AI world is right now and what that path looks like, whether you're building AI products or a career in AI. I'm your host, Polly Allen. I'm the founder of AI Career Boost, where I spend my time helping product leaders navigate the world of AI and transition and thrive in AI leadership roles. And I spent my career in both the product management and software development worlds. I'm an ex-Alexa AI principal product manager, where I successfully launched the very first generative AI answers on Alexa. And I'm a Top 100 Women of the Future award winner. I'm very excited to welcome our guest today, Brian Diller. Thanks so much for joining us, Brian.
Thank you so much, Polly. Good to see you.
So Brian Diller is an AI product leader translating complexity into clarity in higher education. At Watermark, he's spearheading the design and launch of student success and course evaluation products, infusing AI into workflows that help institutions better support learners. And with a rare blend of systems thinking and creative empathy, Brian draws on his past life as a music professor I'm going to do that sentence again. Brian draws on his past life as a music professor to lead with insight, precision, and purpose. And he's especially passionate about applying AI responsibly in real-world decision-making. As a fun side note, he once composed music alongside A.R. Rahman in Chennai. He's a huge name in revolution in Indian music happening right now. So exciting. Thanks so much for joining us today, Brian.
Thanks, Polly. That's such a nice introduction.
Well, I'd love to start chatting with a little bit more about your background, because it's fascinating to see how you translated your experience in music and as a musician into tech for higher ed. But I'd love to hear more about your experiences, how you evolved from a musician to a professor, and then how you decided to approach getting into product management from there.
Sure. So like so many product people I know, we kind of come from all over the place, right? There's really no formal training to be
Right.
good at product. You just have to be good at common sense reasoning and sort of practical skills and good at working with people. But there's a couple of things I think in my background that led me to be really interested in product, but I'll kind of start from the beginning. So for people who don't know, I've been a classical musician since I came out of the womb. We played piano in my household. Many members of my family are professional musicians, and we were always playing music, singing. And so piano was my main instrument, but I also had this other real interest in learning all the other instruments. And I had this real talent where I could learn instruments quickly. And so I joined my school orchestra. I also joined the school band. I could play all the instruments, and I went to college specifically for music education because I wanted to teach music, do band with kids. And I eventually wound up at the college level as a college professor, teaching band, teaching orchestra, doing chamber music, working with students who wanted to go be professional teachers themselves. And so I have a PhD in classical music in conducting specifically. And I was a tenure line music professor at Old Dominion in Virginia for many years. And I just got kind of interested in the other side of things. And so I left that. I did my MBA at University of Southern California. And now I do tech for universities. I'm managing
Nice.
two products. One's for student advising. One is for our course evaluations.
Great. I was wondering, so that sounds fascinating. What do you remember the moment that you were like, hey, software for the space and being a product manager? What tweaked that for you? Was it using software in the space, or what made you curious about the whole space in the first place?
I wish I had some master plan for when I came back to business school for what I was going to do. I had no idea when I left academics. I just knew that I was good at working with people. I was good at analyzing problems. I was good at being creative with my thinking. And so I knew I could do different things with that, but I had no idea what. And then when I got to business school, it turns out the best advice I got there was take what you love and you're good at and do that. And
Hmm.
then I found an internship with Watermark where I was working with software, but it was for students. And I get students and I get faculty because I was them. So it turned out to be a really natural fit.
Oh, fantastic. That's awesome. And now you are working extensively on AI features at Watermark, particularly in like course evaluation. I'd love to hear more about the kinds of ways you're using AI, both in your processes and in the tools that you're building.
Yeah, so in our internal process, we use Gemini at Watermark. So that's obviously really helpful for all kinds of our own office tasks. But it's also really helpful as my thought partner as we're generating ideas for new features. What should we do competitively with the product? So having nothing specifically to do with AI features itself, it just is a great thought partner. And I'm sure all your students have begun using it in that way.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Now, but you're doing more than just like market research, right? I know that we've done some extensive work prototyping, and in fact, as part of the blueprint, as part of your capstone, you prototyped something that you are pioneering at Watermark, right?
Yeah, definitely. So, in terms of actual AI work, last summer I was really involved with a new feature which we've released for our course evaluations product, which is using AI to help analyze, synthesize results for course evaluations. If
Hmm.
you're a professor and you have 5 students in your class, it's not really a problem to review your course evaluations. But if you're teaching a gigantic lecture with 300 students, it's very hard for you to reveal that not only just for your own time, but also how are you objectively ever going to figure out what are students saying without just cherry picking things out of it. So we found that to be a really, really great use for AI. It's very efficient and it has been really well received by our users. As far as the class that you mentioned, I loved being in your class, learning all the tools for how to build my own prototype. I had never done that with AI, so I wound up using Lovable. But all along the way with your coaching, I used ChatGPT as my thought partner. We worked together.
Yeah.
We worked with Lovable to plan out my new feature. I had a good idea going in what I wanted to do, but it was really, really helpful with thinking, sort of planning out all the details. And then also the building process turned out really, really well. I wound up with a feature that I absolutely loved. And that's a feature that we're also now beginning to test with real users for an actual product, which
Oh,
is
that,
an amazing application of skills that I learned directly in your class.
oh, fantastic. That's it's so exciting to see things come to life and actually get used by users. One of the things that you talked about to, and shared with our class as you were doing this, I loved the way you were actually bringing this back to other product managers at your space, right? That you were actually building something where in the back end, you could actually expose the underlying system prompts and have them tinker with them and collaborate with them as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that worked in Lovable?
Yeah, sure. So I was inspired by a classmate who did the same kind of thing, but I did even more with it. So I wanted, well, my prototype was really a proof of concept
Right.
prototype that I
Yeah.
wanted to prove to myself and to everyone else that we can detect these trends in the student data. The concept of the prototype is that if you're an academic advisor at university, you may have 200, 300 kids on your caseload, and your job is to keep them in school, right? Keep up with their grades, keep up with advising them, helping them register for the right classes, stay on track, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So our
absolutely.
platform already pulls in all these data points. You can already access that information. But the problem that we're solving for is that it's all so isolated. It just has dozens and dozens of different data points. It doesn't tell you the story of this student. Who's this human being that I'm trying to help get through school?
Yeah.
And by the way, what are all the factors which they're bringing into this meeting right now, which may have been lost in notes, dozens of notes down if this student has been around for a while and if they've been having a lot of troubles. How are you ever going to sort out all that information and pull up what's the most important that I need to know? For example, if the student revealed that they had some kind of disability or
Oh,
something
yeah.
else kind of sensitive that you might need to know, to family
Yeah.
struggle, food insecurity, these kinds of issues affect many of our students. But they're things that you want to know right away. And if it's a new student or a new advisor, how do we bubble up the most important stuff for this meeting, which I'm having with a student right now that I may not have had time to prepare for. So we wanted to pull all these data points together and tell a cohesive story, and then
Yeah.
also make some recommendations for things that you might talk with the student about right now, actions that you might take, actions that the student might take either before or after the meeting to all make this more efficient. AI is really good at this kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially the more data you have, the more I can see trends. And so the more data that we have on students, the better it works. So anyway, back to the prototype. The concept was that I wanted to prove that if there's some tiny detail buried in the data from years ago, it
Yeah.
would find that and it would pull it up to the top as a signal, as here's some of the most relevant context for
Yeah.
this human being.
Yeah.
So to
Absolutely.
do that, I wanted to put it in the UI because I wanted the user using my prototype to be able to change the data and observe how
Mm,
the analysis changed. I
right.
wanted
So,
them to be able to insert their own note. Here's maybe a meeting note from 3 years ago. I want you to add a tiny thing. Student mentioned that mom had died recently from cancer,
right.
or mom had, or a student has severe transportation issues, which
Mhm.
persist and student doesn't want to talk about, that kind of thing,
Right. Yes, absolutely.
which can be very sensitive, but also very important. And this advisor-student bond is really um, special to respect in that way.
Yeah.
So I wanted to prove that the analysis could reveal these things. So we put it in the UI itself. These are all just imagined students, and I had Gemini, of course, generate imagined data for these imagined students.
Hmm.
So we generated this giant JSON context, but you could open it up for each student. You could change it, save it, generate a new analysis, and see how the story on the student changed. That's one thing.
Absolutely. So it's like synthetic data, but you can put this in the hands of other PMs and
Mm-hmm.
you're testing it, but you also let you spread this in the organization that they can test it too.
Yeah. And then you mentioned prompts. That was the next thing, and possibly even more impactful. At least at Watermark, product owns the prompts,
Yeah.
which is a really cool power, but it also gives us all the responsibility, mostly
Yeah.
of being the leader on what is our prompting strategy. And that can be pretty easy. In our cases, sometimes turns out to be pretty complicated. So to let people play with that, and I sent my prototype to many of my colleagues to get an idea for how this even works if they haven't written any of their own prompts before,
Right.
and because it's new to everybody.
Yeah.
Um, how do you structure a prompt? How do you see the data transform, and how do you begin to test around that? So I put the prompts right in the UI. There was a special button that you could click. It would open up the prompt. You can change the prompt and see how the analysis changed.
Yeah.
It was
Oh,
supposed to be
very
like a working laboratory for myself to figure out these things, to prove to my colleagues that the feature worked, and to also give them a little bit of a playground to play with some of these things too.
absolutely. And did they adopt it?
It's in process. We're
In the
testing with
process.
customers right now.
Yeah,
We'll be
exactly.
making some changes.
Customers are adopting it, but do you feel like that you actually got like other PMs on board with trying it out?
Oh, definitely. People love going in to play with the data, play with the prompts, see if they could break it, see what did and didn't break it.
Yeah.
But what was most important, I think, is tuning the prompt to pull out what you think is the most important part of the story that you want to tell. And that
Yeah.
has nothing to do with AI. That's all about your mind as a product manager of what's the story, what's the real problem that we're trying to get at, what's the direction of the pain that we want to solve for the customer, and what do we not need to do right now, which is actually just noise and is distracting.
Absolutely, absolutely. So many organizations leave the prompts in the hands of the engineers and like locked up in GitHub or code
Huh.
repositories. And I think you mentioned from the beginning, Watermark has always actually like put the prompting piece, like the PMs on the prompts. And I just think it strikes me as is empowering. Have you found it difficult, hard, or something that you enjoy having that kind of that like, hey, I actually control the system behavior in some regards?
Oh, well, it's been an amazing challenge. I had no experience really writing prompts except for, hey, ChatGPT, plan my meal for tomorrow. I had no experience working with in our case for last summer, it was a gigantic schema of
Hmm.
quite a few different things that we needed input, we needed output structured in a certain way, solving some pretty difficult challenges for how we needed the AI to like you have to phrase it in this specific way for governance reasons, because it's education. You have to be really careful about certain things. And I'm sure many of your listeners have similar concerns if they're working in finance, health, very restricted
Totally.
governance, questions. So having to figure that out. Thankfully, our engineering team is also fantastic, and they help with a lot of those more kind of engineering things like the schema and things that I couldn't solve with the prompt. They were great
That they were
collaborators
exactly
to help with.
exactly. But
Yeah.
now
And
you're
there
a
were
team.
quite a few things that we needed to work on this one together.
Yeah.
So,
Wonderful. Well, it's quite the transformation, Brian. Like a year ago, you weren't working in this AI forward way. You're bringing your team along with you, working in system prompts. Can you tell us how you made that transformation? How did you make this leap into the person who's driving AI adoption at your organization?
oh, I just got involved. I really wanted to be involved in this feature that we were working on last summer. I just kind of got pulled in, thrust in. Here's the storm. You go right in. Suddenly, all this is your stuff to manage. So that just turned out to be a good opportunity. But it also happened because I was asking. Like
Yeah,
I knew that there were rumblings at the company about this kind of thing. I knew I didn't have any skills related to AI at all. However, I knew I was creative and wanted to help and wanted to learn.
yeah.
So it turned out to be a project that I could get involved with. That I
Well,
could have easily said, no, I don't want to do this. And that would have been such a huge mistake.
or did you have any temptation to feel like, hey, I'm new in the space. I'm not a programmer. I'm not the most technical. Can I even take this on? A lot of people might have been scared to put their hands up.
Only after we got into the details and the prompting became difficult. In
Yeah.
our case, we had one long prompt, which was attempting to do a lot of things. We would have split it up
Hmm.
now, and so we'll approach it differently. But the company we just didn't know. It was so much earlier.
Right.
A year ago feels like a decade ago.
Isn't it crazy? But yeah, that's really what it takes to be on the forefront of this is diving in and getting hands on, right?
Definitely. But being
Absolutely.
open, asking for opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. Being willing to put your hand up and just having the courage to know you'll figure it out as you go along. Fantastic.
And I think many of us are in places that really want us to succeed. They want to help. And many times you were just given an opportunity and you sink or swim, but there's lots of people who want to help you along the way and will throw you a line, throw you a lifeboat, push you from below. But sometimes we have to ask, and
Yeah.
sometimes even asking can be hard, but
Yeah,
that's part of the process.
absolutely. It's saying you're willing to handle the messy middle and the uncertainty of it. You're just showing, hey, I'm willing to take on something that's a little more amorphic as a problem, knowing that I'm gonna have to figure it out as I go.
Sure. And AI features especially present so many new problems. And it's great that AI can magically solve many problems, but it introduces so many new detailed issues that you have to be very, very involved with. And you do an amazing job covering that in your class. How to pull apart each of these: data integrity, business concerns, how to look at them all in a separate lens. But there's so many new things. And especially with the AI feature, it is so much in the details that you have to get right because the
Absolutely.
risks are so much higher.
The risks are so much higher. The edge cases, there's so many more edge cases we've never thought of. Exactly. Well, it's so encouraging to see that you're actually bringing this stuff to users, to production, and leading the charge on this as well. For anyone who is interested in getting hands-on, getting involved in their organizations, getting into AI and these AI roles, what advice did you have if you had to boil it down to like one sentence?
I think my biggest advice is to just ask to be involved, ask for opportunities, ask what's going on in the company. Every company on earth has AI initiatives now. You can get involved. And everything that you will do is an opportunity for learning. And you'll probably become the company expert on that one thing, even if it wasn't necessarily what you wanted to get. It may not be the flashiest part, but it may end up you're the expert on this kind of schema that we need to understand to master this area of the market. So you never know.
Yeah, absolutely. Go deep, and there's no small players in this game. No small
Absolutely.
roles.
And no, and even the smallest detailed areas turn out to be so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, great advice, Brian. Thanks so much. So we have time for one last segment, and that is at plugs. Did you have anything you wanted to plug, share out on the podcast today, Brian?
Well, maybe two quick plugs. First to you for
Oh,
taking me into your class, giving me so many skills. I, I think I would be doing okay in product management now if I didn't take your class, but I have so much more credibility, knowledge, technical skills, confidence, cred, especially when I could show my prototype to my company, which blew them away, which I only would have done because I was inspired by you and your class. So thank you so much. And then maybe just the second plug is for University of Southern California, Marshall
mm.
School of Business, for helping me make that pivot into business.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, exactly. It's a hard pivot to make, and congratulations, on getting their foot in the door in product right now. It's an awkward time for a lot of people. Obviously, you found your home, and it's so exciting to see you lead. And I'm so excited to see what you build next. It's going to be a
So, and it's such
great.
a fun place to be. It really is exciting and changing every day. So we're so lucky that we get to do this.
Exactly. What a crazy time to be in this space right now. Amazing. Thanks again so much for coming on, Brian. It's wonderful having you on today. I know a lot of people will be really inspired by your story. So I really appreciate you coming in and telling us about it. And we'll be watching. Awesome.
It's great to
Thanks.
see you.
That's our podcast for this week, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.